like computers and technology, so. Additionally, what Judge Johnson was going to say is that he persevered. He became the first Eagle Scout out of Wilkinsburg, Pennsylvania in 2003. He became a distinguished Eagle Scout, and in 2010, he received the Silver Beaver Award for Scouting. Additionally, he has served the Scouts for over the past 70 years, and for the last 26 years, it's my understanding, he has come to this event and sponsored a table every single year. Additionally, and so we're now giving him an award. Additionally, with this award, the Laurel Highlands Council of the Boy Scouts of America has created the Judge Livingston M. Johnson Endowment of $25,000, which has been, thank you. Which has been contributed by those in the community who know and want to share their appreciation for Judge Johnson's tireless service. With this endowment, he will become the first African-American member inducted into the prestigious 1910 Society of the Laurel Highlands Council of the Boy Scouts of America. All monies from this endowment will be used to ensure that inner city scouts with limited financial means will have the benefit of a lasting scouting experience for the years to come. We'd like to thank everyone who contributed to this fund, and their names at this time were supposed to appear behind me, but I'll just go on. You will find them all listed in the brochure. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Livingston M. Johnson.
Good evening. I can't see any of you, so that means I'm not supposed to be intimidated. I take this award, the Livingston M. Johnson Legacy Award, with all humility. I understand that they needed somebody to stand up here and be the one to have their name on a legacy award so that we could try and continue the good work of the Boy Scouts of America Laurel Highlands Council. And when they asked me to present myself, I told them that if it didn't violate the Code of Judicial Conduct, I was on board. And when I checked with the Court Administrator's Office and the Court of Judicial Conduct, Bob Gracie, the Executive Director of the Board of Judicial Conduct, asked me, he said, well, now, Judge Johnson, you're retired, aren't you? And I said, well, yes, I am. He says, how old are you? I said, well, 2 days after last Christmas, I hit my 87th birthday. He says, well, I think the cap for judges is set at 75. He says, so if you're now 87, I don't see how in the world you could ever be appointed or elected to the office of judge. He says, so you tell him, go ahead with it, which is what I told Carl, go ahead with it. And I am mostly appreciative that I didn't know who was behind giving all this money. I did know that the Allegheny County Bar Association gave a sizable contribution because I got a copy of the letter that they sent to the Boy Scouts announcing the award. And I knew that my fraternity, the Sigma Phi Phi fraternity, had given a sizable contribution because I was at the meeting when it was voted upon. And I'll tell you that I abstained, so nobody can accuse me. Well, they could accuse me, but they can't convict me of having had anything to do with Sigma Pi Phi coming up with a gold award. Now, everybody else on this list, I didn't know a thing about it, and I'm just overjoyed and humbled by the people who thought enough of me that they, who were going to give money to the Boy Scouts anyhow, didn't mind attaching my name to it. So to all of you who came forward, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. There are a number of people who have been responsible for my being able to achieve whatever success I've had in the scouting program. As the video had begun to share with you, I was sitting in my 7th grade class at Horner Junior High School in Wilkinsburg when 4 or 5 of the classmates first passed around the scout manual, and in all honesty, they had it turned to the page of the manual, near the front of the manual, which had to do with masturbation. And of course, for a kid in 7th grade who doesn't know anything about the term, let alone can spell it, why, when you start reading that in the scout manual, it sort of catches your attention. And it caught my attention, and they asked me after I read that passage in the manual, Livy, do you want to join Troop 5 Wilkinsburg? And they haven't thrown out a line with a hook like that on it. The rest is history. I found out about 4.5 years later when I went before the Board of Review to see whether or not I had fulfilled all the requirements and character-wise and the like was considered by the troop to be sufficient to be awarded the Eagle Badge. I found out from our head of the troop committee and the scoutmaster that they were very proud of me and wanted to thank me. And when I asked them for what, they said, well, you're the 3rd person who ever came through Troop 5 to be a scout here who has achieved the rank of Eagle. They said, and you bore out the faith. They said you wouldn't know anything about it, but when you came here 4 years ago and asked to join the troop, we didn't give you the registration material initially because we had a division on the board as to whether or not they were going to let you in because you're, back then the term was colored, and they said, you're colored, and we'd never had us colored out before. Said, and it caused a division because we won by 1 vote, a majority of those who said that if we were about the business of scouting and living up to the scout oath and the scout law, that there was no legitimate basis upon which we should prevent you from joining, said, and you've made us proud. That's one of the reasons why you find me still active with scouting at age 87, because all the way up the trail, when some people were trying to hold me down and hold me back, I had others who were there to step in and say, no, Livy's going to move forward. Joe Brunton, who was our Chief Scout Executive for the East Burrs Council back there in 1939. When I would go into the Scout office to purchase Scout equipment, Scout manuals, patches for my mother to sew on my uniform, he would challenge me. "Livy, what rank are you?" And I'd tell him, "Tenderfoot, sir." "Well, why aren't you second class?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm trying." "Well, you try a little harder and try a little faster." And then when I got to second class, "Livy, why aren't you first class?" And I told him, "Well, I don't know how to swim." "Why don't you know how to swim?" I said, "Well, don't have any place to learn." And it was Joe Brunton who hollered over in the next room, "Horace, get in here." And it was Horace Ball, Mr. Ball, and he was the life savings instructor. He told him, he says, "Horace Livingston tells me he can't be first class because he doesn't know how to swim. You go and teach him to swim." So it was that Mr. Ball would take me to the Horner Junior High School swimming pool, along with all the other scouts that he had in his swimming class, to teach me to swim. And it was ironic because my younger sisters, they were not permitted by the school system to swim in their regular physical education swim class as students behind me at Horner Junior High, though I was permitted to get in there with the Boy Scouts at 7 o'clock in the evening to learn to swim. And indeed, Wilkinsburg back then, their bigotry didn't permit them to let my sister swim for a year. When my father went before their school board to challenge their restriction, they told him, "Well, Oliver, you know what the law is. You're an assistant district attorney. You've been practicing law." And my father told him, said, "Yes, I know the law, and that's why I'm here, and that's why my daughters have a right to swim." And they said, "Well, if you insist, then we're going to have to close the pool." And my father, in rather un-Boy Scout-like language, told them, "Then you go ahead and close the pool." And indeed they did. And it remained closed for a year. I was told I had 5 to 7 minutes to speak, so that's just one instance. And there were many all the way up through scouting where people tried to hold me back and hold me down, and I always had somebody, Skip Hall, vice president of Joseph Horn's company, whom I asked to present the Eagle Badge to me at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church the Sunday after Thanksgiving in 1945 when I came back from college, because Skipper, though he was in his 70s at the time, I think, made it his business to see to it that there was no reason I had for saying I couldn't move forward, because he was pushing me all the way. It was Reverend Father Perkess, the rector at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, a native of England, who, during his sermon that Sunday morning, when my Eagle Badge was presented, in his sermon to the congregation there, informed them that he had been told by his congregation that if he permitted me to have the Eagle Badge presented in their sanctuary, that he no longer was their pastor. And Reverend Father Perkess, during his sermon, mentioned that he had told them then they needed to find a new rector, because if he was the rector, I was going to have that badge presented in St. Stephen's Episcopal Church that Sunday morning. I mention this because we have a number of young Boy Scouts of color here, several of whom have already made Eagle, but I want them to understand that if you have the temerity, the character, the integrity, the dedication to move up and move forward, there's always going to be a hand out there to help you in the scouting program. And you can be standing right where I'm standing several years from now. We need every young person that we can bring into the scouting program to follow this route. It hurts me when I turn on the television, I turn on the radio, and I hear about another shooting, another death. And I think to myself, but for the grace of God, that very well could have been me. No matter how indigent your circumstances might be, no matter how poor you think you are, no matter how many obstacles you may think you have in front of you, there's going to be somebody there, including myself, to try and help you. So those of you who are already in the program, stick with it. Those of you who are already in the program, reach out and pull some other scouts in, not necessarily the way I was pulled in, but pull other scouts in. We need each and every one we can get. Again, I'll thank everybody, and most particularly I want to congratulate Jason Flowers, Carl Cooper, Gordy Gibbons for the wonderful job that they engineered in having this wonderful dinner tonight, and thanks to all of you for the award that you gave me. To God be the glory.
They're going to give you the award, sir. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One second. I'm also giving the judge a proclamation from Jake Wheatley from the state legislature, acknowledging him. A printed copy is in your booklet, but this is the actual copy Jake gave me to give to you. And I just wanted to let you know that Judge Johnson operates on a Jamaican 7 minutes. So
I plead guilty.